Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. You know, one of my channels I subscribe to, Artrant, he made a video this morning talking about people of today and how basically we're not going to leave any, don't seem to have any real good people in society that can be remembered like the people of the past, like some of the philosophers and some of the major movers and shakers of the ancient times, even up to the last few hundred years. And I totally understand where he's coming from because I've had those same views and I've thought about this a lot. Like people of today's world that we think are so important, the people we look up to right now, music stars, movie stars, they'll be completely forgotten. They won't endure the test of time. However, we still have people that will. And some of those people, like Gandhi, MLK, the Dalai Lamas, various peoples and cultures and of cultures who have made a large impact. Those people will go down in the books. And when you make a comparison between them all, the line that you can draw is that they are all peacekeepers, people of peace. And I think that can say a lot to all of us, is that the most remembered people are always either the most horrendous, violent people or the most peaceful people of change. And a lot of people want to be vile so they can be remembered violently. That's why a lot of people do mass murders. They want to be remembered. They want their name to go down in the books as being this, I don't know, a person that can be remembered. And it doesn't have to do with the murder itself. It has to do with the memory of society, of them, a person knowing deep in their mind that society has only two people that they remember, the worst and the best. And I think in the future that we will, regardless of what happens to the human race, a lot of people say that we'll be wiped out. And I don't doubt that a major portion of society probably will, but I think that humans are at a point now where we will make it through. We will make it through the bottleneck into the next change, the next whatever it may be, the next era, because it wouldn't matter if we had a nuclear winter at this point. We can always find a way to make hydroelectricity, some sort of electricity to produce indoor grow lights. We'll always be able to keep sustaining humanity unless something really horrendous happens that takes out everything. But point being that I think in today's world we have a different grasp. We have a different idea of what's important than we did in the past. And borders have always been important, but one thing I remembered is there's personal gain, which is the ultimate, seems to be the driving force behind a lot of people's lives. Personal gain, what can I get instead of what can I give? And when I move up the chain, I start to see things like, first you defend themselves, and then there's family protection. They protect the family unit. If a neighbor fucks with their family, hey, they're going to stand up to their neighbor and tell them how it is. Then there's neighborhood, that feeling of neighborhood watch, where you're keeping an eye out for your whole neighborhood, and if some other neighborhood messes with your neighborhood, oh, hey, Or like, for example, yesterday some guy was peeling up and down the road in my neighborhood, and we don't take that shit on my block. There's one renter on a house of owners, and all the guys come out, and we made it very clear we don't take that crap. And it was really funny because I started thinking about how neighbors don't even talk to one another. And then all of a sudden something happens in your neighborhood and you come together as this force, like, and it moves up the line into community pride. In your whole area, we have the Furcrest neighborhood community, and we have to defend against, people coming into our community messing around. Then there's the city. What city do you live in? Are you proud of your city? Oh yeah, I live in Portland. Oh, I live in Salem. Oh, my city's better than yours, but we still live in the same state. And then it moves up to state. Oh, I live in Oregon. Oh, I live in Washington. Haha, our teams are better than yours, our sports team, or whatever it may be. Nationalism is the next step, and nationalism is one that people can't seem to get over. You want to stand up for your country, that's great. You want to say, go America, that's awesome. I think that's wonderful. But not in the sense that we're better than anyone. Just say, go America, like go Americans, like, live it up, do something great, change the world, but not we're better than you or we're going to take what you have. And that's where when people stand up against the status quo, they tend to get this crap like, oh, you're un-American, and I'd rather be un-American than unworldly. So, but even beyond nationalism, then there's unions like the European Union and the North American Union, the areas that are like, oh, well, we have cultural differences, so we're going to stick together against these other cultures. Then there's the worldview, which says that who knows, once we discovered, that aliens are among us, and we'll find out that there are other populated planets, then all of a sudden we'll be competing to see who has the better planet. And amidst all that, interlaced with it all, is racism, sexism, hatred, animosity, and it's sickening. It's just sickening to me to see it so prominently within our society, and at the same time be able to realize that that's the way society has always been. And this is the material, this idea that there's a fabric, like a way that you can write these things down, say, okay, this is how history was, this is how it was 1,000 years ago, this is how it was 500 years ago. It's just these idealistic senses of what it was like, say, in the times of Jesus. People picturing people walking around with robes and whatnot, and the views that we have as individuals, each one of ours is completely different as to what the people were like back then. And today, we can't even remember what it was like 50 years ago. You picture the 1950s, and you just picture this American lifestyle with the wife cooking and the roast, and the husband comes home from work, and how you doing, Junior? How was school? That's not how it really was. That's not how it was. That's how a small segment of American culture was, and that's how the media defined it. And that's how we remember things, is how the media defines them. And the media tells us to stick by our country, the media tells us to stick by our communities, and tells us that everybody's out to get us. And the point being, to come full circle on this, to really wrap this up to my point, was that amongst all this hatred and sticking up for your community and your nation and your color and your height, or even sexism, male and female, amongst all of that, I see a lot of good going on out there. And there's too much focus on the negativity. There's too much focus on the bad parts of society, the bad elements of society, because they're the most noticeable. It's the easiest for us to really point a finger at. And that's what we're really good at as a society, is pointing fingers. Pointing fingers at each other, pointing fingers at our parents, the government. And I don't doubt that there are some serious issues to contend with for our freedoms. There are people who make a living off of others dying. And that's a pretty, just right down to the root, there. It's there's little trivial details all the way around the border, and the facets of every, justification a person has for their behavior or what they do, but there are people who literally live by others dying. Big pharma, people who are aware that they have cures for things, but don't want to provide that for fear of ridicule, or people not thinking that they're standing up for their nation or their... to me, I've had somebody mention family, one time we were talking about family, and they said, well, family comes first. I said, well, sure, if I know them, yeah. They're like, well, blood comes first. Like, I don't give a damn who's in my bloodline. I really don't. Everybody is equal to me that I don't know, and they're all equally great people, but I wouldn't say sacrifice a friend ahead of a relative I didn't know or something. It's just one of those things. It's who you're entwined with, and each one of us has independent relationships. So if I could leave with anything, I'd say that I call upon anyone who is involved in any major corporate entity, whether the person's involved in government, whether it be local, federal, or if a person's involved in world issues, or any person out there, any one of you who have an impact, do something with it, please. And if your heart tells you to act on something, then just do it, because it's all we got left. No more borders. Stop viewing things with borders. Just remember that there's a family across the world, directly on the other side of the planet, who's living just like you are, and just wants peace for everyone too. So I just don't want that to be forgotten amidst all the chaos of what's going on, that people are still just people, and they're not all bad. And people seem harsh at first, you know, and then you give them a hug and all of a sudden they light up and our whole day changes, you know. They just don't expect it. Give people the unexpected. Give people a hug. Give them something from your heart, but give them love. So peace to you.